Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 7/8/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 130. I am 47% complete with the JavaScript section, and I have completed the Async and Await module for today. And this is a meaty one. It's definitely, I feel like it's not hard to understand. There's just a lot of text, a lot of things to read through, and so I won't go over all that. We will go over the learning objectives, and then I'll show you my source code for the inline project that's contained within here. There's a little section here called practice, and basically it's going back to the Giphy API practice project from the last video. So I my luck. So this video, they obviously, like I just said, they have you move on with the Giphy and make some changes to it, as you see here. But I'll go through them. I'll go through the changes with you in the editor, because I think it'll make more sense. But I've got my new API key in place, so I will probably figure out how to blur out the key, because I don't want to cycle it a third time. So yeah, that'll be that. So I'll figure that out. But yeah, it's a lot of reads. It's good reads. I encourage you all to take your time with it. Don't skip it. There's these awesome articles here, and then there's a video to top it off. Wes Boss is speaking at a conference. This is an old video. It's from 2017, as are most of the articles, but nevertheless, it's going over a lot of ES7 stuff that's really good and very applicable to today, even so, in 2022. So with that said, let's go over the knowledge check here. How do you declare an async function? So it takes you up here to the definition here. Async keyword is what lets the JavaScript engine know that you're declaring an asynchronous function. This is required to use the await inside any function. When a function is declared with async, it automatically returns a promise. Returning in an async function is the same as resolving a promise. Likewise, throwing an error will reject the promise. So they're saying an important thing to understand is async functions are just syntactical sugar for promises. That is true. It flows better. I actually like the async. If you guys have worked through this module already, I think you'll probably agree. The async await mechanism in syntax is syntactical sugar, but it's really easy. I like it because it's easy to use. It makes sense when you read it, unlike the the promises and thens and the catches and all that, especially the thens. When you call the thens, it works once you get your mind wrapped around it, but it's not nearly as readable and intuitive as the async await block is. So that's that. So basically how you declare is you just put async in front of any function call and it becomes an async call. That's simply put. And that allows you to put an await in there. And just as a friendly reminder, you'll read this in the text, but you cannot use await, the keyword await, outside of an async function, just by the nature of the way it works and the way the JavaScript engine runs it. You will get I think a type error if you try running it outside of an async function. So you always have to wrap the await inside of an async. I think there's only one exception to the rule, and that's if you're running it inside of a module that's not in the global namespace. So you can't run await outside of function, and you can't run await in the global namespace. Which obviously that's solved when you run it when you wrap it inside of an async function, because it's not, by pure definition, it's a child of the async function, so it's not ever going to be sitting in the global namespace. So what does the async keyword do? We just went over that. It's kind of 2-in-1 there. Allows you to write that asynchronous code, that section of code, and use the await keyword. And then it says and it does, as we are just discussing, as you probably read too, it does, even though it doesn't look like it because you're not using the word promise, it is using and returning promises. The async does automatically. So just remember that's synonymous, that when you use async, async will always return. If you return anything, it will always be a promise. What does the await keyword do? The await keyword is pretty simple. It tells JavaScript to wait for an asynchronous function or action to finish before continuing the function. It's like a pause until done keyword. The await keyword is used to get a value from a function where you would normally use then. So instead of calling then, after the asynchronous function, you'd simply assign the variable to the result using await. Then you can use the result in your code as you would in your synchronous code. So there's an example. That's error handling. So yeah, so the await is it's pretty simple, exactly what it sounds like. You're going to, ideally, you'll have like const data equals await space whatever it is you're trying to get, and so that will JavaScript will asynchronously move on, but at the same time await for that action to complete if it's waiting on it for a promise to process, either accepted or rejected, or if you're waiting on JSON to be formatted from a response. You can use await on that, and then it's key to usually, and I'll show you this in my code today. It's you want to put that into a variable so you can use it elsewhere if necessary. It makes it a little easier. What is returned from an async function? So this takes you out to one of the many articles you read. So the question is, what is returned from an async function? The async function keyword below has two effects. It makes it return a promise and allows await to be used in it. And we already went over both of those in extensive. What I'm trying to say, exhausted those already. Excuse me, been a long day. The await keyword before a promise makes JavaScript wait until that promise is settled. Okay. So if it's an error, the exception is generated as same as a throw error was called in the very place. Otherwise, it returns a result. So, not to get too nitty-gritty deep on that. Keep it simple there. What happens when an error is thrown inside of an async function? So going back out to this JavaScript info article, what happens when an error is thrown inside of an async function? So if a promise resolves normally, then await promise returns a result. But in the case of rejection, it throws the error just as if it were to throw an error statement at the line. So this code, async function f await promise dot reject new error, is the same as this async function f throw new error. Whoops. They're using an example of throw new, the keyword throw, in particular. You can do that. In my code, you can also use a try catch, and that's the avenue I went that I'll show you in a minute. And so you do your try. Inside your try, you have your await and your fetch, and whatever else code you have to try, and catch will be catching that error. And then any way you choose to report that out and take care of that error. So that's that. I'm not getting too deep into that. Does that answer the question? Okay, yeah. So you have to do something with the error, and that's just the example here of throwing the error. Just know that you need to handle errors. Otherwise, if you don't try to handle your errors via whether you use a throw or a reject or a catch, the problem becomes as promises. Because remember, it's still, even though it's an async function, it's still a promise. So it will silently swallow the error handling, as they say, and as you read in the text, and that basically means you won't see or hear anything about it. Excuse me. And that's not good, because if there's a problem and you're waiting on middleware, or you're waiting on you got a 500 or a 404 somewhere, or you're waiting on your backend to do something, or your SQL to do something. You need to know if there's a problem somewhere and there's an error, so make sure you take care of your errors. How can you handle errors inside of an async function? Yeah, so we just went over that, so I kind of 2 for 1 on that one. So there's that. So now what I'm going to do, and I'll figure this out afterwards on how to blur this out, but I'm going to show you my my updates. So this is nothing's changed. I'm not really going to move the screen around so to make it easier for me to blur my API key. But what I changed was this block of code here and this block of code here. So first off, we add the keyword async here, up here on function. So we have async function fetch new cat Giphy, and we're going to do I'm going to do a try and a catch. So I'm going to create a constant response variable that takes on await. Excuse me. It takes on we're going to await a fetch. So we're going to fetch that API and from Giphy, but we're going to wait. And then when that fetch is done, it's going to apply that that resolution to the variable response. And then same thing for cat data. We're going to do an await, and we're going to wait for it to create the JSON from the promise, and that becomes cat data. So then image.source is we're going to change that up. It did say response before, but now we're going to have cat data because we've used a constant variable from the await response JSON. So that's now broke. If you leave it at response, if you're following along with me in the instructions, you will get a error. I didn't catch that the first time, and I had to troubleshoot a little bit because I was like, why is this not working? It just legit was not showing any images, and it's because I didn't change my variable here. So catdata.data.images.original.url will bring up the correct URL that we looked at in the last video in the inspection for the source for the image. And then we're going to have a catch here for an error, and we're going to do console.log. I'm not doing anything with the error. We'll learn about that probably in future videos, but this is right now I'm just logging it out. Something has went wrong when fetching cats, and then display the error. Ideally in the future, to make that more robust, if we're doing an actual program, you're going to want to do something with that to resolve it, or have the user do something to resolve it. So however you want to handle that. So the other one is right here, and it's exactly the same thing, so I don't know if I really need to go over it again. It's just adding the async keyword here, and then encapsulating it into a try catch, and then the if statement is the same here, and search terms the same, and then we're just adding the constant variable response, the await for the fetch, and the constant search response, and the await response JSON. Same context as the other one. We're going to do image.source equal to and takes on search response.data.images.original.url, and we're also doing a catch here. Same thing. You have entered a search term that fetched no Giphy. Try again. Error. And then log out the error. And that's it. So that's the only changes. I actually like this so much better than doing the .thens off the promises. That works, but boy, async, once you learn it or you get introduced to it, it's just so much easier to use. Don't you guys think even just logically this is easier to read and understand than using, calling the promise and then doing a .then and then a .catch, even though we kind of do a catch here, but it just makes more sense to me this way. I'm going to try to incorporate this type of functionality going forward in my code blocks, but we'll see in my logic in the upcoming weather app, which is going to be, I believe, the next lesson or next video. We'll start doing the weather app, so that'll be kind of fun. Someone left me one of you guys left me a comment several videos ago saying that I don't know if you were being sarcastic or not, but you said that you couldn't wait for me to get to the weather app, that it was fun. So I hope you meant I hope your fun meant it's actually fun and it doesn't suck crap. So it actually is good, so and fun. So because I'm looking forward to a little bit of fun. So yeah, so that pretty much rounds that out. Thanks for coming along the journey with me this afternoon. I hope you learned a little bit along the way, enjoyed yourself. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comment section how you guys are getting along with async functionality here, and maybe throwing a little try catch in there, or maybe you doing a little bit different than me, and that's fine too. Because in the as I mentioned previously, in the actual text, it doesn't have you do try catches. I put this in there because I wanted to, because our requirements in our original Giphy inline project from last video said that you needed to catch your errors. So, because in the documentation on Async Await, it actually doesn't have anything in there about try catching. I mean, it does, but not for the project examples. See, it's not in there. So, in fact, it's not in there either. So, yeah. So, and even when you turn it, yeah. So when you convert it to the async, see, there's no try or catch there. It's not catching any errors. So, I decided to put that in there as per what we kind of learned throughout the other parts of the module. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.